Ever wondered what happens to accident write-offs and seriously damaged cars? Well, they're sold by insurance companies as salvage. Here they're being auctioned to the highest bidder. Some are sold to be rebuilt and some end up as parts. Trouble is, too many are bought specifically to provide new identities for stolen cars. Ask yourself, who pays up to 400 quid for something slaughtered like this when its real value is perhaps only 50 quid or so? It's twisted metal that represents the first link in the stolen car chain. What the motoring lowlife do is to buy a written-off car like this one to provide the identity for a stolen car. They then go out and steal an identical one and simply transfer the chassis plates and registration number onto the stolen car, so the stolen car assumes the identity of the written-off car. This is known as ringing.
Ringing started late 60s, early 70s. RS2000s were the favourite car at that period of time, or hot hatches. Then it moved into RS Turbos, XR3s, Cosworth Sierras, and I think as the ringer realised that the insurance premiums were going up on performance cars, he moved into a bigger market, saloon vehicles.
So how widespread is the ringing problem?
25% of motor salvage sold today is being sold to ringers. Mainly the late new type salvage, badly damaged vehicles that require body shells. That's the type of vehicle that a ringer buys.
This is the pound at the West Midlands Stolen Car Squad, and all these cars have a question mark over their ownership. So what happens to you if you mistakenly buy a stolen car? What are your rights? Well, unless you buy from a reputable dealer, absolutely none. A Court of Appeal case in 1987 established a legal precedent that says that the purchaser of a stolen car, however well-intentioned, never, ever acquires good title to that car. So that means that if you do mistakenly buy a ringer, you stand to lose not only the car, but the hard-earned cash you paid for it as well. And if you think that's unfair, so do the Hoskins.
Well, my husband was out shopping and he pulled over for a routine check. The police suspected the car was stolen and arrested him. They kept him for 8 hours in the police station and eventually came to search our garage, found nothing. They kept the car. A couple of weeks later, the insurance company that owned the car got involved and wanted the sum of $2,600 from us. We eventually settled for $2,400, having paid $2,900 back in '91. So all in all, it's cost us $5,300, an awful lot of aggravation, and it's been a complete nightmare.
Remember that the Hoskins drove and owned their Fiesta for over 3 years before its true identity was discovered. And that's part of the problem. A well-run car is very hard to spot. The police say that some ringers are nothing short of craftsmen, and this rung rover is the work of a real pro. The old VIN number was drilled out, meticulously filled, repainted, and a new one stamped over.
Ringing is a major problem now. Look, in 1992, 500,000 motor vehicles were stolen in the United Kingdom. 150,000 were never recovered. So many of these vehicles, identities have been changed by ringers and come back out onto the road and unfortunately purchased by innocent people.
And the problem is made worse by the fact that it's relatively easy to get hold of a V5 registration document. In some cases, DVLA at Swansea will even issue a duplicate one. But just to show you how devious these ringers are becoming, the police have lent Top Gear a forged V5 registration document. Now, these are available on the black market for £40, and there's quite a few in circulation. They're pretty convincing. All they lack is the watermark. So if you're looking at a V5 on a used car, make sure you hold it up to the light. There are other ways to protect yourself too, like not meeting the seller halfway in a car park and making sure that he or she is the registered keeper and lives at the address on the registration document. And don't fall for the old one about selling it on behalf of a friend. The more documentation that the owner has, like insurance cover notes, past MOTs, old servicing bills, the better. They're signs of genuine long-term ownership. While you're looking at the registration document, it's critical to check that the chassis and engine numbers tally with those on the car. Look at the VIN plate and chassis number. Has it been tampered with? Is the plate distorted? Get out the owner's manual and find out where the chassis number is, even if it means getting down on your hands and knees. There's nothing to stop you speaking to the previous owner before you buy either. His name will be on the registration document. And never, ever pay in cash. A cheque or banker's draft are much, much easier to trace. While it's hard to apportion blame for what is fast becoming one of the most dangerous aspects of buying a second-hand car, we at Top Gear believe that some of the responsibility should be placed firmly at the doors of insurance companies for not controlling the byproduct of their own industry. As it stands, it's still alarmingly easy for anybody to go and buy a badly damaged car and use its identity to dress a stolen one in borrowed clothes.
Some of the larger companies have been taking an initiative by introducing a system whereby they are classifying the salvage before we get it. Companies such as Eagle Star, where they are telling us before we get the vehicle that the vehicle is to be de-identified and sold only for spare parts. This is carried out by us by removing all identification from the vehicle, cutting out VIN plates, removing registration plates, any form of identity removed from the vehicle and kept securely. These vehicles then go into the auction and are sold without identity as spare parts only.
So at least some of the larger insurance companies are being more responsible, making sure that their salvage doesn't get into the wrong hands. But even the industry itself admits there's room for improvement.
For many, many years now, insurance companies have voluntarily notified to Swansea cases where they write off a vehicle. The idea then is that if someone tries to put that vehicle back onto the road, then the police have the opportunity to inspect it to see whether it is in fact a ringer. The problem has been that the number of notifications going into DVLA exceed 400,000 a year. And this, in fact, has overwhelmed the police, and they can't expect to inspect every single one of those vehicles.
So what's to be done? Well, we at Top Gear recommend several things. Firstly, we'd like to see a levy of £1 taken from everybody's insurance premium to fund a heavyweight anti-ringing campaign. And secondly, we'd like to see a special fund created, possibly financed by the insurance industry, to compensate honest buyers who have inadvertently bought stolen cars in good faith. And lastly, we think it's simply scandalous that chassis numbers and logbooks are so easily available. We'd like to see government legislation passed to ensure that the identities of written-off cars likely to be used for ringing are destroyed.